Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we begin the task of reviewing the entire wave of the brand new Fierce Force figures, and we begin that task with the Tanystrophius. This is the only brand new species entering this line for this particular wave, and it was one that I think many people were very excited about because it's a species that we have not seen in the Jurassic line in a very, very long time. It has been in the line prior to this, but not by Mattel. And that's very exciting to have one here as far as a Mattel version. I think it looks okay-ish. The sculpt is pretty fun. The paintwork is definitely alright, I think. It looks pretty cool. But the head is like the main area of goofiness, I would say, as far as this Tanystrophius goes. Although, if we look back to the older Kenner one, that one didn't really have too great of a head sculpt either. So I guess the Tanystrophius is doomed when it comes to sort of silly-looking head sculpts in the Jurassic line. But as far as the box art goes, you can see it's your basic standard, Dino Escape box art. And then here on the back, we have an image here showing off how we operate the action feature, as well as some of the articulation and the other figures that are in this wave of Fierce Force figures. Interestingly enough, you can see some really beautiful articulation right here. Unfortunately, during my review, I don't think I'm going to have the opportunity to actually articulate it in these two spots. It is super, super stiff on mine, and I was just a moment ago, right before I turned on the camera to review it, I was kind of trying to push this forward a little bit, and it looks like it's actually going to break up here if I do that. So I'm obviously going to have to, at some point later, hit this with some warm water or a hairdryer or something to warm those joints up to, smooth out the articulation. But right now, that is definitely not going to articulate, and if I try to force it, it's definitely going to break. I could already see it starting to wear through. So anyway, let's go ahead and pop this out of the box, and we're going to head straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can kind of see what I was talking about as far as it looking a little bit funny, but at the same time, I don't think it looks terrible. We do have some really nice looking interlocking teeth on our Tanystrophius. The unfortunate side of the Mattel figures at times is the teeth usually tend to look really bad as far as, interlocking teeth when it comes to how, curved and just generally not sharp looking, I guess you could say, the teeth look. You can definitely see that is without a doubt the case on this Tanystrophius. It has kind of big, bulky, very ugly looking teeth, almost at times Schleich-like teeth as far as the way their teeth at times look. And you can see that they're painted nicely, which is a plus, but the teeth in general just don't really look that great on the figure. You can see the inside of the mouth sports a nice purplish coloration in there, very nice gloss coat as well. We have a tongue present, and the tongue doesn't really have any texturing to it at all, like none that I can see. So that's a little bit of a downside, but you can see that we have a nice darker blue coloration here for the lower jaw, but we have kind of like a bluish gray, like a light bluish gray. For the upper side, we also have a yellow eye with a black pupil. Absolutely a huge plus having the black pupil on the eye, which definitely makes a big difference, I think, in the appeal factor of many of the Mattel Jurassic World figures when they add the black pupil. And both eyes are placed very nicely, no sloppiness or anything as far as that goes. We can also see some speckling and stuff here throughout the face of the Tanystrophius, and I feel like we're probably going to see that throughout the entire course of the figure like we usually do when it comes to Mattel figures. The figure does have some really nice scale detail. Like you can see some pretty big scales here in the face, even here on the lower jaw, before transitioning to a much finer scaling here in the neck and in the back of the neck region. You can see as we continue to move down the course of the figure, like it has some beautiful, very reptilian-like scales, very, very fine scaling. As you move down this exceptionally long neck, we start to get kind of some skin folds and stuff here picking up, as well as some ridges running along the back of the Tanystrophius. And I like the fact that we have different sizes for the ridges, like they're not just all one uniform size, they're varying sizes, which I think does help with the overall appeal factor of the figure, although I wouldn't expect Tanystrophius to actually have ridges running down the back of the neck there. They are present on this particular version. And as we get a little bit further down into the neck, you start to see we transition from that light bluish gray to a darker blue, the same shade of darker blue that we see on the lower jaw up there. And you can see that as well as the bluish gray kind of transitions back and forth, and they just kind of splotch together all over the place. Like it's just a overall kind of jumbled mixture of both of those colors, and it looks really cool. And you can see that the ridges continue to run down the neck until we get to the body right here, right as we reach the body, the ridges disappear completely. We do not have any ridges here on the body for our Tanystropheus. You can see some more beautiful scale detail. The scale detail of this is extremely vibrant on the figure, like most Mattel figures have been lately, like really, really nice looking scale detail, similar to the Shringosaurus, like how incredibly appealing and reptilian the scales looked on that is exactly the way the scales look on the Tanystropheus. You can also see some osteoderms and stuff poking up here and there throughout the shoulder area of the Tanystropheus. Moving down into the legs, you can definitely see again some more really nice scale detail, some really nice structure to the leg here. You can see the elbow is present, nice creasing right here in the joint of the elbow, and you can also see that foot sculpt looks really good. Kind of has like some webbed feet. We can also see some scoots down the toes. The nails, unfortunately, do not have any paint on them at all, which is not at all a surprise. Moving back up into the body, you can see the rib cage here shown off a little bit. You can also see a lot of skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff in the lower part of the stomach, and more extremely appealing looking scale detail. Again, more very reptilian scale detail. You can also see the spinal column here kind of elaborated running along the back of the animal. The hip bone is also kind of elaborated right there, and you can see that there's definitely some very nice muscle definition in the thigh and calf region, as well as the knee being present here on the front of the leg. You can yet again see the foot sculpt looks pretty much the same as the first foot sculpt did, with some nice scoots down the toes. Again, no nail paint and a nice webbing to the feet. And then moving out into the tail, again, the scale detail and the skin texture of this is super, super nice looking. It just generally looks like a lizard, like how you see modern day lizards with so many like skin wrinkles and stuff. Like, it looks so realistic the way that they've done this. And you can see we have a very nice small tail for our Tanystropheus. There's also some more beautiful scale detail, a little bit different looking scale detail on the underside. There is the Jurassic Facts app code if you would like to add that to your collection. But again, we have the really nice, very reptilian looking scale detail here on the underside, similar to what you would see on the underside of a lizard, I think. And lots more skin wrinkles and skin folds that you can see down here, as well as that very strong speckling throughout the entire course of the figure. It looks very cool the way that they've painted this. I really do wish, of course, that we would have more paintwork on this, because the alternate tones of color just stop dead right here as soon as you reach the body. And then for the second half, as always, we have nothing else other than this blue and then the speckling, and there's no coloration here on the underside or anything like that. So that is, of course, a downside as far as these Mattel figures go. They, without question, really need to work on the paint apps and start adding more coloration into their figures. I think at this point, we're so far into the Jurassic line, it's probably not ever going to happen, but it would really be a breath of fresh air if they would start doing that. And of course, nail paint is a must, I think, on every figure. You really shouldn't skip out on that. But the figure as a whole is actually quite nice. You can see this side doesn't really look any different than the other side, being kind of an articulated figure. There's not too much difference over here going on compared to what we had just seen on the first side. You can see the legs and everything look really nice, very low to the ground as far as what you would expect to see on a Tanystropheus. And of course, everything else looks very nice and pretty much just like it did on the initial side. So very cool looking sculpt. Obviously not the most accurate Tanystropheus, but it's really cool in general to have a Tanystropheus in the line. We really don't get very many from any company, so it's pretty neat to have a Mattel version. Now, as far as articulation goes, again, we do have the articulated jaw, which we have already seen. That does work pretty nicely. We also have articulation right here in the neck, which can swivel, so we could turn the head completely upside down if we would like, but you can also see there's a joint there for it to go, down and up, which it cannot do currently because that is so stiff right now, and being that it's so thin, it is definitely going to snap if I try to do that without warming the figure up, which is something that I really think anybody that's buying one of these for their kids definitely should pay attention to, because I could easily see a kid just snapping that off immediately as soon as they get a hold of it. So make sure that you warm that up. As well as this area here, again, right here, there is articulation. Yet again, the swivel effect does work pretty good. We can do that without any type of an issue, but it's very, very stiff. It's not going to move until I warm that up. So 2 areas you really need to make sure you warm up. Don't force those or they're most likely going to break. We, of course, do have articulation down here at the base of the neck as well, which is part of the action feature. We have articulation in the legs, forward and back, and also stiff, but out away from the body. Also very, very stiff, and that seems to be the case with a lot of the joints of this figure, it's just super, super stiff. Oh, all of them are, honestly. The rear legs do work also, but again, pretty stiff. I don't think they're going to move out away from the body now. And then we do have articulation in the tail, but it's only going to move slightly, and that's going to actually activate the action feature here. So we're going to press that down, and you can see our Tanystrophius is now attacking whatever is nearby. That neck works pretty nicely, really smooth articulation, so at least something on here isn't stiff. That's nice to see at the very least. As far as a size goes, in the position that it's currently in, for a length from the head to the tail, you are looking at about 8¼ inches or 21 centimeters. And then for a height, you are looking at just shy of 5¼ inches or around the 13 centimeter mark. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Pabo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Mattel Fierce Force Tanystrophius. And you can see that it fits pretty much right in the same size range as all of the figures of this range. Pretty much exactly what you would expect as far as a Tanystrophius goes size-wise is what you get here from Mattel. It's not very large. It's a fairly, thin, slender, and long figure, but at a smaller size overall. So hopefully these figures here will help to show you the size of the Tanystrophius. And then for another comparison, you can see what the older Jurassic Park Tanystrophius looks like size-wise in comparison to the brand new Mattel version. In my opinion, even though it's very, very far from accurate, the older one wins here. Just so much more paint application. No painted nails, though, I will say that. But just generally a more appealing look, and it's a good bit larger and longer than the Mattel version. Both are definitely really cool, but the older one, in my opinion, is the superior of the two. So this brand new Mattel Fierce Force Jurassic World Tanystrophius is another fun release from Mattel, but definitely nowhere near their best. It is, again, really cool to have a Tanystrophius entering the Jurassic World line. We haven't had a Tanystrophius in the Mattel line prior to this, so it is cool to see a new species show up. It's, of course, not a new species to the Jurassic line, but to the Mattel line it definitely is, and it's a pretty fun sculpt overall. Pretty much exactly what you would expect as far as a Mattel Tanystrophius. The sculpt is extremely highly detailed, as you usually find when it comes to a Mattel figure. The sculpt and detail is fantastic, with some very nice, very lizard-like scale detail running the entire course of the figure, as well as many different areas of skin wrinkles and skin folds resembling modern-day lizards, which I really do like. I think it looks very nice, very vibrant as far as the detail goes. It all just pops beautifully on the sculpt and really does look fantastic. Even if the head sculpt is a little goofy, I think it's, of course, closer to what a Tanystrophius would look like than the older Kenner version, but it still is a little bit weird looking in my opinion, just has a little bit of a goofy look, but at the same time, it's pretty nice looking. It definitely doesn't look terrible, I will say that. The paintwork is okay-ish. It's pretty much what you've come to expect when it comes to a Mattel release, as we have kind of lazy paint apps where we only have a few color variations on it, no coloration for the second half of the body, which at this point is unreasonably common when it comes to the Mattel figures, no nail paint, which of course is also unreasonably common when it comes to the Mattel figures. Two things that I really feel like could just make their figures jump up so much as far as the appeal factor goes would be adding paint on the second half of the body, which they do sometimes pull that off, and then nail paint, which they also do sometimes pull that off, but not often enough. But the overall paintwork does look cool for what it is, some pretty nice appealing looking tones of color used, and all of it seems to be applied, in a nice natural way. So sculpt and paint wise, it's a pretty fun figure. Articulation wise, it's also fun, does have a good bit of articulation, but the joints are unreasonably stiff all over this figure in every area. The neck's stiff, the legs are stiff, everything as far as the articulation except the jaw is stiff on this figure, so it's a great idea to warm this one up with some warm water, well, hot water I would say, or a hairdryer or something prior to articulating it, or you're probably going to break the figure because it does seem somewhat brittle in the neck region due to how long and thin it is. But again, a pretty fun release from Mattel, something that's brand new, so it's very exciting in general to have a Tanystrophius hitting the Mattel line, even if it's not the best one that we've ever seen. If you are interested in this, make sure you either keep checking Target.com, as it has been coming in and out of stock on there, or you can head to Target in-store and check to see if your local store has it in stock. So one way or another, make sure you pick this up if you are interested, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.